2 weeks after paying off my 2024 BMW, I came home to an empty driveway. I called my dad in a panic. He laughed and said, "We gave it to your sister. You're single. She's got a baby on the way. She doesn't have a license." I didn't argue. I filed a police report instead. The sense of accomplishment I felt when I made that final car payment was indescribable. 5 years of careful budgeting, overtime shifts at the hospital, and saying no to countless dinners and trips had finally paid off. My 2024 BMW wasn't just a car. It was proof that at 31 years old, I could set a goal and achieve it completely on my own. I remember the day I drove it off the lot like it was yesterday. My younger sister, Ashley, had rolled her eyes when I showed her the photos, making some comment about how impractical sports sedans were. My mother, Denise, had pursed her lips and asked if I really needed something so expensive. Only my father, Lawrence, had seemed genuinely happy for me, though looking back now, I wonder if even that was genuine. The evening, everything fell apart, started like any other Tuesday. I finished my shift in the cardiac unit at Providence General Hospital, changed out of my scrubs, and headed to the parking garage. My phone buzzed with a message from my friend Brittany, asking if I wanted to grab drinks, but I was exhausted and just wanted to get home to my apartment. Traffic was lighter than usual. As I made my way through downtown Portland, I stopped at my favorite Thai place and picked up Pad Thai EU for dinner. The autumn air had that crisp quality that always made me feel alive. Everything seemed perfectly normal. My apartment complex has assigned parking spots, and mine was always right near the entrance. As I pulled into the lot, I noticed the empty space immediately. At first, I thought maybe I was confused about where I parked that morning. Sometimes when you're running on 6 hours of sleep after a double shift, your brain plays tricks on you. I circled the entire parking lot twice. My heart started pounding as the reality sank in. My car was gone. Someone had stolen my car. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911. The dispatcher was calm and professional as she took down my information. She said an officer would be there within the hour to take a report. I stood there in the cooling evening air, clutching my takeout bag and feeling violated in a way I'd never experienced before. Then I thought to call my father. He'd help me research security features when I bought the car. Maybe he'd have some advice about tracking systems or insurance claims. "Hey, sweetheart," he answered on the third ring. I could hear the television in the background, some football game probably. "Dad, someone stole my car," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I just got home and it's gone. I already called the police, but I don't know what to do." There was a pause. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "Nobody stole your car, honey. We gave it to Ashley. She needs it more than you do." For several seconds, I couldn't process the words. They didn't make sense strung together in that order. "What do you mean you gave it to Ashley?" "Your mother and I talked about it. Ashley's got the baby coming in 4 months and she needs reliable transportation. You're single. You live close to the hospital. You could walk to work if you needed to. It just makes more sense for her to have it." My brain was trying to catch up with what I was hearing. "Dad, that's my car. I just paid it off 2 weeks ago. You can't just give away my car." "Don't be dramatic," he said, and I could hear my mother saying something in the background. "We're a family. Family helps each other out. Ashley and Brett can't afford a new car right now with a baby coming." "Ashley doesn't even have a driver's license," I said. "She lost it 3 years ago, after her second drunk driving charge." "She's been sober for 18 months, my father countered. "And Brett can drive it. They need a reliable vehicle." I felt like I was in some kind of surreal nightmare. "How did you even get my car?" "Your mother has your spare key, remember? From when you had that medical conference last year and needed someone to move it for street cleaning." I had given my mother that spare key in good faith, never imagining she would use it for something like this. The betrayal cut deeper than the theft itself. "That doesn't give you the right to take my property," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "I need you to tell Ashley to bring it back right now." My father's tone shifted, becoming harder. "Listen, your sister is about to be a mother. She has responsibilities now. You spend all your money on yourself anyway. Fancy apartment, expensive car. It won't hurt you to make the sacrifice. I worked for 5 years to pay for that car. Every single payment came from my paychecks. And your mother and I paid for your college education," he shot back. "Or did you forget about that?" "We never asked for a dime back. The least you can do is help your sister when she needs it." The logic was so twisted I almost couldn't formulate a response. "You gave me a gift, and now you're using it as justification for stealing from me." "Watch your tone," he said sharply. "We didn't steal anything. We're reallocating family resources. Ashley needs that car more than you do. End of discussion." He hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding my phone, my dinner growing cold in its plastic bag. A sedan pulled into the lot and a uniformed police officer stepped out. Officer Martinez was in her 40s with kind eyes that had probably seen too much. She took down all the information: make, model, license plate, VIN number. When she asked if I had any idea who might have taken it, I hesitated for just a moment before telling her the truth. My parents gave my spare key to my sister without my permission. They claimed they had the right to give her my car. Officer Martinez's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. And do you want to press charges? This was the moment where everything could change. If I said yes, I would be setting something in motion that couldn't be undone. My family would never forgive me. Holiday dinners would be awkward or non-existent. My mother would probably stop speaking to me entirely, but they had stolen my car. There was no other word for it. Yes, I said, I want to press charges. She nodded and made notes in her report. We'll need to classify this as theft of a motor vehicle. Given that you know who has it and where they likely are, we can probably resolve this quickly. Do you know your sister's current address? I gave her Ashley's address, the house she shared with her boyfriend Brett on the other side of town. Officer Martinez said she'd follow up and be in touch. As she drove away, I finally went up to my apartment. The Pad's Eye EU had gone completely cold, but I ate it anyway, sitting at my small kitchen table and trying to process what had just happened. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. First my mother, then Ashley, then my father again. I didn't answer any of them. The voicemails were predictable. My mother calling me selfish and ungrateful, Ashley crying and saying she couldn't believe I'd call the police on my own family, my father demanding I call off the report immediately or face consequences. I blocked all 3 numbers and tried to sleep. The next morning, Officer Martinez called to inform me that my vehicle had been located at Ashley's residence. My sister had been cited for possession of a stolen vehicle, and the car would be released back to me once I came down to provide documentation of ownership. Your sister claimed your parents had given her the car as a gift, Officer Martinez said. But the title is in your name alone, and you made the report so legally, it's straightforward. I took a personal day from work and went to retrieve my car. Ashley and Brett's house looked exactly the same as the last time I visited for an awkward birthday dinner 6 months ago. My BMW was parked in their driveway like it belonged there. Ashley came storming out as I approached with Officer Martinez, 5 months pregnant and furious. She looked like she wanted to attack me. "You're insane," she screamed. "Mom and Dad gave me this car. They had every right to do that." "They gave you my car that I own," I corrected. "That's called theft." "It's called being part of a family," she shot back. "But you've always been selfish. Everything has to be about you." Officer Martinez stepped between us. "Ma'am, the vehicle belongs to her. The title is in her name. Your parents had no legal authority to give it away." "This is ridiculous," Brett said from the doorway. He'd gained weight since I'd last seen him, and he looked exhausted. "We were told the car was ours. We didn't steal anything." "You accepted stolen property," I said coldly. "You could have asked to see the title. You could have questioned why my parents would give away my car without talking to me." Ashley's face crumbled and she started crying. "We needed this. We can't afford a safe car for the baby. Brett's truck is falling apart." For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered my father's laughter on the phone. My mother's spare key turned weapon. The complete disregard for 5 years of my hard work and sacrifice. "That's not my problem," I said. "Get a job, save money, do what the rest of us do, instead of expecting handouts." I took my keys from Officer Martinez and got in my car. It smelled like Brett's cologne, and there were fast food wrappers in the back seat. Ashley's prenatal vitamins were in the cup holder. They'd already started treating it like it was theirs. The drive back to my apartment felt surreal. I kept expecting someone to call and tell me this was all a misunderstanding, but my phone stayed silent. When I got home, I spent an hour cleaning out the car. Every trace of Ashley and Brett had to go. The fast food wrappers, a hair tie on the gear shift receipts from gas stations I'd never been to. Finding a pacifier wedged between the seats felt like a punch to the stomach. They'd been planning for this baby to ride in my car. They'd already imagined their future with my property. I documented everything with photos. Gregory had told me to keep records, and I was taking that advice seriously. Each piece of trash went into a plastic bag that I dated and labeled. It felt excessive, but I learned that excessive preparation was better than being caught off guard. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, knocked on my door that evening. She was 70-something and had lived in the building for decades. We weren't close, but we chatted occasionally when getting mail. "I saw your car was missing yesterday," she said. "Then I saw the police here. Everything all right?" I gave her the basics, watching her expression shift from concern to outrage. Your own parents, she said, shaking her head. In my day, family meant you could trust people, not that they could rob you blind. Her words stuck with me. That's exactly what had happened. I'd been robbed by the people I should have been able to trust most. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's laugh, that casual dismissal of my panic, like my distress was amusing rather than valid. I'd never heard him laugh at Ashley's problems. When she'd gotten her second drunk driving charge, he'd been angry and disappointed, sure, but he'd never laughed. Around 2 a.m, I got up and made tea. Sitting at my kitchen table, I started writing down every instance I could remember of being treated as less important than Ashley. The list grew longer than I expected. When Ashley dropped out of community college after 1 semester, our parents had consoled her and said education wasn't for everyone. When I struggled with organic chemistry, my father had told me to work harder because nursing school wasn't going to get easier. When Ashley got fired from her retail job for showing up late repeatedly, my mother had blamed the manager for being inflexible. When I'd asked to borrow their car once because mine was in the shop, my father had lectured me about planning better. The pattern was so clear when laid out like this. Ashley was protected from consequences. I was expected to handle everything myself. And when I succeeded when I bought a car, I was proud of it, became something they could give away to her. By dawn, I had 5 pages of notes. The tea had gone cold hours ago, but I felt something I hadn't felt since finding my empty parking spot. Clarity. It took 3 days for the rest of the family to get involved. My Aunt Suzanne called, trying to mediate. She'd always been the peacekeeper, smoothing over arguments at Thanksgiving and Christmas. But even she seemed to think I was being unreasonable. Your sister is pregnant, she said gently. Can't you just let this go for the sake of family unity? Family unity is a two-way street, I replied. Where was family unity when my parents stole my car? They didn't steal it. They just redistributed resources. You have to understand, Ashley and Brett are in a tough spot financially. So am I. I'm a single woman living in an expensive city on a nurse's salary. I worked overtime for 5 years to pay off that car. But you don't have a baby on the way. The implication was clear. My needs and accomplishments mattered less because I hadn't gotten pregnant. Never mind that Ashley had been barely employed for most of her 20s, drifting from part-time job to part-time job. Never mind that she'd made choices that led to losing her license. Because she was having a baby, she deserved my property. I'm done with this conversation, I told Suzanne. If anyone in this family wants to talk to me, they can start with an apology. I hung up and blocked her. Work became my sanctuary. At the hospital, things made sense. Patients needed care. I provided it. Insurance companies tried to deny coverage. I fought them. There were rules and procedures and a basic sense of right and wrong that apparently didn't exist in my family. My coworker, Madison, noticed I was distracted during a shift about a week after I got my car back. Everything okay? She asked as we charted medications in the nurse's station. I gave her the abbreviated version. Her eyes grew wider with each sentence. They just took your car, like drove it away while you were at work. Apparently, family loyalty means I'm not entitled to property rights. Madison shook her head in disbelief. My cousin tried something similar with my grandmother's jewelry after she died. Claimed Grandma had promised it to her. We had to get lawyers involved. Did it work out? Eventually, but half the family stopped speaking to us. Said we were being greedy and disrespectful. She paused. Worth it, though. Some people will take everything you have if you let them. Her words stuck with me. Some people will take everything you have if you let them. 2 weeks after retrieving my car, I received a cease and desist letter from a lawyer representing my parents. They were threatening to sue me for emotional distress and defamation. Apparently, Ashley had been so upset by my actions that she'd been put on bed rest by her doctor, and they held me responsible. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I called an attorney of my own. Gregory Whitman was a family law specialist recommended by Madison's cousin. His office was in a sleek downtown building with a view of the river. He read through my parents' letter with an expression that never changed. Do they have any legitimate claim? I asked. None whatsoever, he said. This is an intimidation tactic. They're hoping you'll back down rather than face legal action. Can they actually sue me for emotional distress? They can try, but they won't win. You filed a legitimate police report about your stolen vehicle. That's not defamation. It's factual. As for emotional distress, they'd have to prove you acted with malicious intent rather than simply protecting your property rights. He set the letter aside and looked at me directly. The question is what you want to do now. We can send a response telling them to pound sand, or we can go on the offensive. What does offensive look like? You could file a civil suit for conversion, the unlawful taking of your property. Even though you got the car back, you suffered damages, stress time off work, legal fees. You could also pursue charges against your parents for theft, though the DA would have to decide whether to prosecute. The thought of suing my own parents made me feel sick, but the thought of letting them intimidate me felt worse. Let's start with a response letter, I said. Make it clear I won't be pushed around. Gregory nodded and made notes. I'll draft something today. In the meantime, document everything. Save all voicemails, texts, emails. If anyone in your family makes threats or admits to taking the car, keep records. I left his office feeling slightly more in control. At least I had someone on my side who understood that ownership actually meant something. Over the next few days, I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Sarah Chen specialized in family dynamics and boundary issues. Her office was calming all soft grays and plants with a view of a small garden. Tell me about your family, she said during our first session. I started with the car, but she pushed me to go deeper. We talked about my childhood, about always being the responsible one, about how I'd learned that love was conditional on being useful. You were parentified, Dr. Chen said. You learned early that your worth came from taking care of others and not causing problems. That's a heavy burden for a child. I hadn't thought about it that way before, but she was right. When Ashley struggled, I was expected to be understanding. When I struggled, I was told to figure it out. What happens if you disappoint them? She asked. The question made my chest tight. I don't know. I've never really tried. You're trying now, she pointed out. By filing that police report, by refusing to just let this go. How does that feel? Terrifying, I admitted, but also kind of powerful. She smiled. That's growth. Scary and empowering often go together. Our sessions became a weekly anchor. Dr. Chen helped me see patterns I'd been blind to, helped me understand that standing up for myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. The response letter was delivered within 48 hours. Gregory had crafted something that was simultaneously professional and devastating. It outlined the facts of the case, cited the relevant laws, and made clear that any further harassment would result in additional legal action. My phone exploded with angry messages from family members I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, my parents had been telling everyone their version of events, painting me as a vindictive daughter who'd call the police on her pregnant sister over a simple misunderstanding. Only my grandmother reached out with something approaching neutrality. Phyllis was 83 and didn't tolerate nonsense from anyone, including her own children. Tell me what actually happened, she said when I answered her call. I explained everything: the missing car, my father's laughter, the police report, the cease and desist letter. She listened without interrupting. Your parents are being fools, she said finally. Lawrence always did spoil Ashley. Denise enables it. They're threatening to sue me, Grandma. Let them try. I'll testify on your behalf if it comes to that. She paused. You did the right thing. Nobody has the right to take what you've worked for, family or not. Hearing those words from her made something loosen in my chest. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone in my family to acknowledge that I wasn't crazy. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me. Just don't back down. Bullies only stop when you stop letting them push you around. Her support meant everything. But it also made me realize how isolated I'd become from my family. Growing up, we'd had Sunday dinners every week, birthday parties, holiday traditions. Now I was on the outside looking in, and part of me grieved for what I'd lost, even as I knew I'd made the right choice. Work continued to be my refuge, but the emotional toll was starting to show. I snapped at a resident who was moving too slowly during rounds. I forgot to return a patient's call. Small mistakes that weren't like me. My supervisor, Karen, pulled me aside after a particularly rough shift. She was in her 50s, a veteran nurse who'd seen it all. What's going on? She asked directly. You're not yourself. I broke down and told her everything. She listened without judgment, then said something I didn't expect. My brother stole my identity once, opened credit cards in my name, destroyed my credit score. She paused. He was family, and everyone said I should just work it out privately. But I pressed charges. He went to jail for 6 months. Half my family stopped talking to me. Do you regret it? I asked. Not even a little bit. My credit recovered, and I learned I deserved better than being victimized by people who claimed to love me. She squeezed my shoulder. The family members who abandoned me weren't worth keeping anyway. The ones who stayed are the ones who actually matter. These small moments of validation from people outside my family kept me going. They saw clearly what my family refused to acknowledge. What happened to me was wrong. Full stop. Halloween came and went. Thanksgiving approached. My mother sent a formal email informing me I was no longer welcome at family gatherings until I apologized to Ashley and dropped any potential legal action. I spent Thanksgiving with Madison and her partner at their house in the suburbs. Their family was loud and chaotic and warm, and nobody stole anyone's car. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in years. Ashley gave birth to a daughter on December 8th. My mother sent a mass email with photos and the baby's name, Kennedy Marie. She was beautiful, tiny, and perfect. The email didn't include me in the recipient list. I only saw it because Suzanne forwarded it before remembering we weren't speaking. I felt a complicated mix of emotions looking at those photos. Happiness for the baby who hadn't asked to be born into this mess. Sadness that I'd probably never meet my niece. Anger that my family had created the situation and somehow still blamed me for it. Christmas was quiet. I worked a shift at the hospital and then went home to my apartment. My grandmother sent me a check with a note that said, "Don't let them wear you down." In January, Ashley's boyfriend Brett reached out. He sent a text from an unknown number asking if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near my apartment. Before the meeting, I called Gregory to let him know. He advised me to record the conversation if it was legal in my state and to be careful about making any agreements or promises. "Don't let him manipulate you emotionally," Gregory warned. "He might seem sympathetic, but he's still the person who was driving your car around town." I kept that in mind as I walked to the coffee shop. The place was busy with the lunch crowd, which made me feel safer. Public meetings were always better for these kinds of conversations. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes, the exhausted appearance of a new parent who wasn't getting any sleep. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as we sat down with our coffees. "What do you want, Brett?" He rubbed his face with both hands. I wanted to apologize for my part in all this. I should have questioned where the car came from. I should have insisted on seeing paperwork. Ashley's family said they wanted to give us this gift, and I didn't look too closely because we needed it so badly. "You could have asked me directly." "I know. I'm sorry." He looked genuinely miserable. For what it's worth, I told Ashley from the beginning that something felt off about the whole thing, but her parents insisted it was fine and she believed them. "How is she?" "Overwhelmed. Scared. The baby has colic and nobody's sleeping. My truck died last week and we can't afford to fix it. Her parents haven't helped at all since she gave birth." He laughed bitterly. "Guess their generosity only extends to giving away other people's property." Despite everything, I felt a small pang of sympathy. "I'm sorry you're struggling," I said, "but that still doesn't justify what happened." "I know. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in Ashley's life thinks you're the villain here." He finished his coffee and stood up. "Take care of yourself." After he left, I sat there for a while thinking about consequences. My parents had created this situation with their entitlement and favoritism. Now everyone was dealing with the fallout. In March, I got a call from Officer Martinez. There had been developments in the case. "Your sister's boyfriend has come forward with additional information," she said. "Apparently your father explicitly told him that you had agreed to give them the car, but were too shy to do it directly, so he was facilitating the transfer. We might have grounds for fraud charges." My stomach twisted. "What does that mean?" "It means your father deliberately misrepresented the situation to obtain your property. That's a crime. The DA's office is reviewing the case." I thought about my father facing criminal charges about Ashley dealing with a new baby, while her parents potentially face legal consequences about the complete implosion of my family. What happens if the DA decides to prosecute? Your father would face charges, possibly your mother as well, depending on her involvement. They'd likely offer a plea deal for a first offense, but there would be consequences. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat on my couch and thought about what I really wanted: revenge, justice, an apology, all of the above. 3 days later, my father called from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "I have nothing to say to you. The police are talking about pressing charges. This is getting out of hand. This got out of hand when you stole my car and laughed about it." There was a long silence. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with a police report. I thought you'd be angry for a few days and then let it go." "You thought wrong. Your sister is struggling. The baby has health issues. Brett lost his job. They're about to lose their house." His voice cracked slightly. "Please, can't we work this out as a family?" "You made it clear I'm not really part of this family," I said. "I'm just the resource you pull from when Ashley needs something." "That's not fair." "Fair." I almost laughed. "You want to talk about fair?" Let's talk about how I worked doubles and overtime for 5 years while Ashley partied and made bad decisions. Let's talk about how I paid off my car 2 weeks before you stole it. Let's talk about how you've never once acknowledged my accomplishments, but constantly make excuses for Ashley's failures. She's your sister, and I'm your daughter, or at least I thought I was. Another long silence. What do you want? He asked finally. Name it. I'll make it happen. I want you to admit that you stole my car, not reallocated family resources, not facilitated a gift. Stole. I want you to admit that you had no right to give away my property, and I want you to explain to the entire family what you did and apologize publicly. You're asking me to humiliate myself. I'm asking you to tell the truth. If that's humiliating, maybe that tells you something about your actions. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. And if I do this, he said finally, you'll drop everything. Talk to the DA. Make this go away. I'll consider it. That's not good enough. It's all I've got right now. You destroyed my trust. You don't get to make demands about how I rebuild it. He hung up without another word. On Easter Sunday, I received an email from my father. It was addressed to the entire family, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. The email was 3 paragraphs long. In careful formal language, he admitted that he and my mother had taken my car without my permission or knowledge. He acknowledged that they had no legal right to give it away. He apologized for his actions and for the way he dismissed my feelings when confronted. It wasn't everything I wanted. There was no explanation of why he'd done it, no acknowledgement of the pattern of favoritism, but it was something. I forwarded the email to Gregory Whitman and asked his opinion. It's a start, he said. If you want to pursue the DA about dropping charges, this email shows accountability, but you're under no obligation to do anything. I thought about Ashley's baby with health issues, about Brett trying to provide for his family, about my parents getting older and facing the consequences of their choices. Then I thought about myself at 26, taking extra shifts and eating ramen to make car payments, about the pride I felt making that final payment, about the violation of coming home to an empty driveway. Let me think about it, I told Gregory. That weekend, my grandmother invited me to her house for dinner. When I arrived, my parents were there. Before you leave, Grandma, Phyllis said firmly, everyone is going to sit down and have a civil conversation like adults. My mother looked like she'd been crying for days. My father couldn't meet my eyes. We sat at Phyllis's dining room table in uncomfortable silence. Lawrence and Denise are going to speak now, Phyllis said, and you're going to listen without interrupting. My father cleared his throat. I was wrong. Everything I did was wrong. I let my concern for Ashley blind me to the fact that I was stealing from you. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. My mother finally looked at me. I gave them the key. I helped plan when to take it. I told myself we were helping family, but the truth is we were stealing from our own daughter because it was easier than telling Ashley no. Why? The question came out smaller than I intended. Why am I always the one expected to sacrifice? Why does Ashley's life matter more than mine? It doesn't, my mother said, her voice breaking. But she's always needed more help. And somewhere along the way, we started thinking that was just how things were supposed to be. You were strong and independent, so we leaned on you. We took advantage of your strength. You took advantage of my love for you, I corrected. You knew I'd do anything for family, so you kept asking for more. My father nodded slowly. You're right, and I'm sorry. I don't know how to make this right, but I want to try. We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't comfortable or easy. There were tears and raised voices and moments where I almost walked out, but by the end, something had shifted slightly. I didn't forgive them, not completely. Forgiveness takes time and requires changed behavior, not just words. But I agreed to talk to the DA's office about the possibility of dropping the charges in exchange for restitution and counseling. My parents agreed to pay for all my legal fees and attend family therapy sessions with me. Ashley and Brett were not invited to these sessions, at least not initially. This needed to be about my relationship with my parents before we could address the larger family dynamic. The DA agreed to drop the charges when presented with my father's written confession and evidence of restitution. Officer Martinez seemed pleased with the resolution. Not every case like this works out, she told me during our final conversation. Most families just sweep it under the rug. Good for you for standing your ground. Therapy was harder than I expected. My parents had to confront patterns that went back to Ashley's childhood, the way they'd excused her behavior, compensated for her poor choices, and expected me to be understanding because I was more capable. I had to confront my own patterns saying yes, when I meant no sacrificing my needs to keep the peace, measuring my worth by how useful I was to others. In June, Ashley sent me a letter handwritten on floral stationery. It was surprisingly honest. She admitted she'd always been jealous of me. I made things look easy when they felt impossible to her. I had my life together while hers was constantly falling apart. When our parents offered her my car, she convinced herself I owed her that after years of being the perfect daughter. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just said she understood now that she'd been wrong, and she hoped someday we might be able to rebuild our relationship. I kept the letter, but didn't respond right away. Some wounds need time to heal before you can think about reconciliation. By September, my relationship with my parents had evolved into something different than it was before. More honest, maybe. More bounded, definitely. I saw them once a month for dinner, and we were all careful not to discuss Ashley unless I brought her up first. My grandmother remained my biggest supporter. She told me repeatedly how proud she was that I'd stood up for myself. Your grandfather always said, "The mark of character is what you do when people try to take advantage of you," she said. "You've got character, sweetheart." I still drive my BMW. Sometimes I remember coming home to that empty driveway and feel angry all over again. Other times I'm just grateful I learned the lesson before they tried to take something even more important. Family is complicated. Love doesn't give people the right to your possessions or your peace of mind. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries and enforce them, even when it hurts. Ashley and I have exchanged a few emails. We're not close, and we may never be again, but she included me in a group text when Kennedy took her first steps, and I sent a gift card without overthinking it. Brett and I occasionally grab coffee. He got a new job in construction, and they've stabilized financially. He's never again made excuses for what happened, which I appreciate. The legal documents from that period are filed away in a drawer in my apartment. Sometimes I look at them and remember how close I came to just letting it go to keep the peace. How much I would have lost if I'd chosen temporary comfort over standing up for myself. My coworker Madison asked me recently if I thought it was worth it, all the conflict and pain and family drama. I thought about it for a moment before answering. My car is still in my driveway. My family knows they can't walk all over me, and I learned I'm stronger than I thought I was. Yeah, I said, it was worth it. She nodded, understanding. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. The autumn air has that same crisp quality it did the night I came home to find my car missing. But now, when I park in my assigned spot and walk up to my apartment, I don't feel violated. I feel proud. I paid for that car. I earned it. And when someone tried to take it away, I fought back. Some people will take everything you have if you let them, but I didn't let them. And that makes all the difference.